Hey DIYers, what's up? Mike Borders with the Mike Borders channel. Thank you for watching. We're talking Mercruiser outdrive or stern engines. And in the event that your engine is not trimming up, there are some common causes. We talk about that in a video link scrolling above. One of which is your hydraulic pump solenoid. We're going to show you how to replace that. Let's get started. All right, DIYers, at the workstation, and on the other side of the jet ski is our workbench. And a special thanks to Mom and Dad for allowing me to bring in the jet ski for the winter and make a whole bunch of DIY repair videos for all of you, the DIY community. Let's hop to the workbench. Making our way around the jet ski, and DIYers, we are always busy here. And upcoming is our 1996 Dyno Air GT. We are going to restore that and clean it up. And boat repairs, jet ski repairs, etc. Always busy. And down below in the comment section, as well as the description section, is going to be a link on a tune-up for your boat. Mercruiser, in our case, 3.0 liter. We are going to replace the distributor cap as shown here, and all the inner mechanism parts. We will also post links down below on where to purchase these. So again, definitely check out that video. It will be helpful. However, let's shift to the right, and here are our Quicksilver OEM trim system solenoids. Let's go ahead and open them. And here they are unpackaged. And again, there is the OEM Quicksilver part number, and we'll have links down below where to purchase these. And again, in the event that your outdrive is not trimming up and you've got good trim limit and trim sender switches and wiring, and you've got hydraulic fluid in the system, well, might be you have a bad solenoid. And as you can see, we have two of them. Again, the exact same part number, and the part is the exact same. And a quick top view. And what we'll do now is head out to our boat and remove the old ones and get these brand new ones installed. All right, DIYers, we are inside the garage, and hey, if you have been with us through our entire DIY repair video series on this boat, we really appreciate that. Let's hop to the back, and there is our recently installed outdrive, and it has been rebuilt top to bottom, everything in between. All brand new parts. And down below in the comment section, as well as the description section, we are going to have part one of our full Bellows rebuild kit, and part one of the upper unit rebuild, as well as part one for the lower unit rebuild. Those might be helpful for you. However, let's hop inside the boat. And DIYers, here we are inside the boat. We have a 3.0 liter Mercruiser inboard, and we're doing a lot of work to it. However, step one is the absolute most important. Go ahead and disconnect your black negative cable first from your battery, followed by removing the positive cable. Cut all electrical power to your system. Very, very important. Coming port side of the inboard engine, and DIYers, there it is, our entire hydraulic system. Hydraulic pump, hydraulic reservoir, hydraulic lines, and all of the electrical wiring and connections, as well as both of these solenoids. One down there, and one up top. And again, be very careful as you work through this project. And we are going to reposition the camera and actually remove this faceplate here, or cover plate, that secures to the solenoids on the opposite end. We'll do that now. At this point, I've got the camera positioned. You can see our hydraulic pump and motor, hydraulic reservoir, the hydraulic lines feeding out of the system, as well as all the electrical wiring and the solenoids on the back side of this plate. And DIYers, there is a warning sticker on our plate or cover that covers or secures to the solenoids, and it reads as follows: warning, screw is connected to battery positive. And that is extremely important to know, and that is why we disconnected not only the black negative cable from the battery, but also the red positive. So make sure you do that. I'm going to come in with a Phillips screwdriver and carefully unscrew that screw. And I should be able to carefully just pull the plate out and up. And there is the warning, as you see here. I'll set that in a safe location. And at this point, I will reposition the camera here shortly, but we have 4 7/16 nuts. And each solenoid has 2 of them. So we are going to work through this project slowly, precisely, and in an organized manner. And a quick reposition of the camera. And we are going to start with the center 2 7/16 nuts that secure that plate on one of the threaded terminals on each of the solenoids. And before anything, DIYers, I recommend taking a lot of photos because, again, there's a lot of electrical wiring, and you want to make sure you put everything back together the proper way, because if you don't, well, your trim system is not going to work, and that's not what you want. And again, 7/16, I'll start with the very bottom one and carefully remove that nut. bottom nut is removed. And in addition, you have a washer and you've got a red electrical wire that feeds onto that terminal and then feeds all the way up to a fuse inside a rubber boot. So again, stay organized as you take everything apart. I am going to carefully pull that washer off as shown here. Set that aside and carefully pull the red electrical connection off the terminal. Now to the upper nut and DIYers, as you loosen and remove the nuts as well as all of the electrical connections and then remove the old solenoids and install new ones and then resecure everything, do your absolute best not to damage any wiring throughout the project. That would not be good. Again, go slow, be precise, stay organized. And from here, I will carefully retrieve that washer and I'm going to pull off the washer and carefully remove the plate and that connection point. And it is important to know that this part is completely separate from this part right there. So set these in a safe location. I'll set that aside and put that plate down. And we now have better access to both the top solenoid and the bottom solenoid. What I'll do next is remove this 7/16 nut on the top terminal of the top solenoid and take note of the color of the wire. It is blue and white striped in our setup. And again, be very careful not to harm or damage any electrical wiring or connections. And that also has a washer. Do not lose that. And I will carefully pull that electrical connection off and I'm going to kind of lock it in place down below. And we are left with not only 11/32 nuts that secure 3 total wires, we also have 2 screws or bolts that secure the solenoid to the actual plate or housing. And this wire right here feeds all the way down to the lower solenoid. So again, take pictures, stay organized, and make sure you put everything back the proper way. And what I'll do next, I've got my 11/32 socket. I'm going to remove this nut, which only has 1 wire, as well as this nut, and it has 2. So again, stay organized and do your absolute best not to drop any of these nuts inside the engine. They would be tough to find. And I can remove it by hand from here. And I'm going to keep that wire connected onto the terminal and I'm going to come in and remove the second nut. And as I move forward to the lower 3/8 nuts or bolts that secure the solenoid to the frame, I'm going to keep the wires connected to the terminals of the solenoid. And carefully position your ratchet and socket and again loosen up both the 3/8 bolts. And this one right here on the top left portion not only secures this side of the solenoid, but it also secures this little locking clip for the fuse inside this rubber protector. And there's the screw. It's about a 1/2 inch, as you see right there. And again, from here, as you can see, this whole section here is loose. I'll set that on the back side of the plate. Next, to get to this back bolt here, I have transitioned away from the deep 3/8 socket to the shorter one. And this wire came off, but that's okay. I'll set it back. And from here, just try to get your hand in there and carefully unscrew that 3/8. And there it is. I'm now going to carefully remove these 2 wires here. And again, take note that this wire right here was on top of this wire that feeds all the way to the lower solenoid. And carefully remove the top solenoid, as shown here. And set that aside. And DIYers, at this point, honestly, with the top solenoid removed, it's a lot easier to remove the lower solenoid. And that is what we are going to do next. Without installing the new solenoid up top, we are going to remove that lower solenoid. And again, down here, you've got the 7/16 nut that secures this green and white wire to the lower terminal of the solenoid. And unfortunately, a socket is not going to get on that, so I need to use a wrench. And DIYers, a huge asset to your project at this point, a ratcheting wrench. And down below in the comment section, as well as the description section, will be a link on where to purchase ratchet style wrenches. And above the camera, sorry about that, Let me reposition it. And again, that ratcheting feature of the wrench is going to come in very handy at this step. Carefully position it on the nut and break it free. And again, that has a washer. Just be careful, don't drop the washer. Grab the nut, remove that, as well as the washer. And green and white wire. I'll grab the washer and I'll set the wire aside. Next, I'm left with the two lower 11/32 nuts and the two larger 3/8 bolts. I'm going to loosen up the 3/8 bolts first, and that will allow me to pull the solenoid out so I can gain access to those lower nuts a little easier. And again, just be careful as you remove these 3/8 nuts or bolts. With the left bolt loose but not removed, I'm going to transition to the smaller 3/8 socket and go back behind to the opposite side and remove this bolt. And from here, I'm going to remove this one by hand, and a lot of things are going to start falling. You've got this entire electrical connection with the securing loop. Again, stay organized and take a bunch of photos. And there it is. And again, this is going to fall. And we have better access to the lower screw. Set it in a safe location. And I now have much better access to these small 11/32 nuts. And again, the way this went in was like that. This portion right here was secured with the right bolt, and that has the green wire feeding into it. And again, on the left-hand side is the wire that feeds from this terminal all the way up to the terminal of the upper solenoid. And from here, I'm going to use the 11/32 socket and carefully remove those. And if you loosen them up, you can remove the nuts by hand. And again, that nut secures that wire. There it is, set that in a safe location. I'm going to carefully remove that wire, followed by the right nut. And I'm going to pull the green wire off. And I can separate the lower solenoid from this entire unit. Carefully set that down. And I went ahead and grabbed the new one. And a quick comparison, here is the new one on the left-hand side and the old one on the right. And you'll notice two lower 11/32 nuts. Those are going to stay. I am not going to remove these from the solenoid. And from here, I'm going to carefully reverse the steps. I'm going to grab this green wire and feed it onto the solenoid. And there we go. And again, I need to use that old nut that we just removed. And I'm going to hand tighten it first. Try not to cross thread that nut on the new stud, as shown there. Followed by tightening it in place with the ratchet and socket. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab the 3/8 bolt and set it inside here and re-secure it to the inner plate. And all I'm doing now is hand tightening it, as you can see there. And I'll pull all of this out again. And as you secure the solenoid to the housing, verify you're not pinching any wires in between the solenoid and housing plate itself. And I don't want it too tight. I'm going to slide it up, as well as this connection right here. And as I'm looking everything over, this wire right here, I need to remove because it has to be fed on the top portion of the solenoid. So again, that's the importance of taking photos. I'm going to carefully loosen this up and remove that nut. And I'm going to, again, feed this portion or green and white wire on the top portion of the solenoid as shown here to the very bottom and loop it back onto that stud. And secure it with the nut. And And from here, I can carefully lower the entire solenoid down, and I'm now going to secure that left 3/8 bolt. And as I secure the left bolt, keep in mind you have this plate. Again, the importance of taking photos before you take anything apart. I'm going to raise the solenoid as well as this connection right here, and I'm going to bring the plate in and put it on the boot as shown there. Slide the solenoid up and slide these two down until they meet and are lined up with the hole, and without cross-threading, secure that left 3/8 bolt. And it's important to know this plate needs to be in between the bolt itself and the plate on the solenoid. From here, I'll tighten it up. And before I tighten it all the way, I just want to make sure that the opposite side is properly aligned and no wires are being pinched as I secure the lower solenoid in place, and all looks good. Do not over tighten these, but you want them snug. And again, make sure it is aligned, and I'm going to secure the right bolt. Now that we have our bottom solenoid secured, I am now going to go to the bottom portion of the solenoid and to the left terminal. And again, we have this wire that feeds from that terminal of the lower solenoid all the way up to the upper solenoid terminal. I'm going to secure that on that bottom portion and secure it with the 11/32 nut. And that is tight. And I'm going to shift this to the side. And DIYers, just take a few seconds, double check that everything is secured properly on the lower solenoid. And if all looks good, time to install our upper solenoid. And here it is, our brand new solenoid that's going to be secured to the top portion of this unit and housing. And it's important to note that these little 11/32 terminals here, you want to make sure when the upper solenoid is secured into place, those terminals are on top. And that's the complete opposite from the terminals on the lower solenoid, as they are all the way on the bottom. And I'm going to shift this wire down and out of the way. And I've got this red wire right here. And as I secure the upper solenoid, I need to verify that the wire is all the way up like this and not being pinched as I secure that solenoid to this housing. And in addition, we've got this portion right here, and that is going to go on the outer section right there. And the solenoid plate itself will go on the back side in between this brace here and the black housing. And I will carefully do that now. I'm going to shift this to the opposite end. As I bring the solenoid up, again, I'm going to pull that wire up so it's not pinched and bring the solenoid plate to the back side of this one, and then this one to the outer portion. And everything needs to line up so you can secure that bolt through that hole. And be patient, be precise. This is kind of a tricky step, realigning all of those little plates in a way where you can secure this bolt into the respective hole. Once you get it started, make sure you're not cross-threading it. It should go in pretty easily. And again, this section right here, or the clip, is on the outer section. And then you've got this brace right here, and then you've got the plate for the solenoid. And if all looks good, I'm going to use the ratchet and socket to tighten the bolt, but not all the way, because I still want to be able to move the solenoid slightly to align the other side to secure that bolt. And I'm going to do that now. With the bolt inside the socket and the ratchet in hand, I'm going to carefully position it back and inside that hole and align it properly, and do not cross thread it. There we go. And from here, I'm going to come up to the top and re-secure this electrical wire to the terminal with the tiny little 11/32 nuts, and I apologize about getting in your way. Again, all I'm doing right now is securing this nut and wiring. And that is tight. And I'm going to now bring this wire up, and again, this one goes on first, and then I'm going to bring the other one from up top and around and onto the terminal and secure it with that 11/32 nut. And again, there it is back there. Back to the left bolt and just carefully tighten it without over tightening it. From here, we are left with the 4 larger terminals or threaded studs of the solenoids, and we've got a blue and white wire, a green and white wire, a red wire down here, and this connection point right here. I'll set that aside, as well as the red wire. I'm going to bring this blue and white wire underneath the green one and up and onto the upper terminal of the upper solenoid. Put that on and re-secure our old or original washer, as well as the 7/16 nut. Back to the ratcheting style wrench. And again, just like everything, don't over tighten it, but you do want it snug. Next, coming down below to the green and white wire, let's go all the way down to the lower terminal or threaded stud of the lower solenoid and loop that onto the terminal and secure it with the washer and nut. Washer first, followed by the nut, followed by the ratcheting style wrench. And again, if you do this, just be mindful that the wiring is right here. Don't damage it. And before I tighten it all the way, I'm going to carefully push the wire a little bit down and tighten it in place, because I have to give clearance for that plate and the additional connections. Next, go and grab this plate and take note how the connections basically rubbed off onto the plate and didn't allow any dirt or corrosion to build. And I'm going to put this bottom portion on the upper terminal of the lower solenoid, and this more oval shaped hole of the plate that will go on the lower terminal of the upper solenoid, and it's shown here. And then when it comes time to secure the entire outer plate with that Phillips screw, it will go inside that center hole. And I'm going to grab this red wire, and again that went on the bottom, and I'll secure that in place, followed by the washer and 7/16 nut. And last but not least, I'm going to bring this large connection point in red positive wire and connect it on the outer portion of the lower terminal of our upper solenoid, as shown there, and secure it with that washer and nut. First the washer and nut. And this one's probably easier to tighten with the ratchet and socket. And at this point, DIYers, just double check everything. And at first glance, I don't like how these wires are pressed up against each other, so I'm going to remove this nut and loop this blue and white wire around and underneath or on the back side of this red wire and secure it. And DIYers, I like that a lot better. Again, the blue and white wire is now looped on the back side of the red wire, and they are not rubbing up or touching or pressing against each other. And again, just double check everything. My green and white wire down below is secured. Both lower wires are secured on the bottom portion of the solenoid. And our blue and white wire has been rerouted, and the 3 wires up top are secured. This wire back here is not pinched, as you see. And this little clip or hook that secures the rubber boot with the fuse is secured. And all 4 3/8 bolts are secured. And if all looks good, it is now time to carefully reinstall this little cover plate with the Phillips screw. And it did just that. That cover plate is now re-secured. And again, double check everything. I really hope you took photos in the very beginning of the project to ensure you are putting everything back together the exact same way it was prior to taking everything apart. And DIYers, that's it. What we'll do from here is hop starboard side and re-secure the red positive cable to the battery as well as the black negative. Back starboard side and battery cables are re-secured to their respective terminals. And what we'll do now is test the trim. As you just saw, the trim works in the down manner as well as up manner, and I pressed and held the up lever until it came to a stop. And from here, you're going to want to measure from the center stud there all the way back to the center stud right there to ensure that it is the exact measurement of 20 3/4 inches. Or if you have a different measurement per your exact serial number service manual, definitely verify that measurement. And DIYers, if your measurement is off, you will need to recalibrate and readjust both your trim sender on the starboard as well as the trim limit switch on the port side. And for your convenience, scrolling above right now as well as down below in the comments section and description section will be a video link that takes you directly to the video where we show those exact steps. Again, readjusting and calibrating both your trim sender on the starboard and your trim limit switch on port side to ensure that your outdrive does not travel outside of the trim limits and damage any internal parts of your outdrive. That would not be good.